He was a towering and controversial figure in the history of Israel, a soldier and statesman known as a fierce, sometimes brutal defender of his country. Former Prime Minister Ariel Sharon died today after being incapacitated for 8 years following a stroke. He was 85.
The state of Israel mourns today the loss of one of its greatest leaders, former Prime Minister Ariel Sharon. He was an outstanding man and an exceptional commander who moved his people and loved them, and the people loved him. He will remain a unique leader who brought victory and offered hope in the long history of our people. May he rest in peace.
It's a great loss for the Jewish people. Ariel Sharon lived for us and died for us.
I believe that Ariel Sharon, he sacrificed Gaza Strip in order to save Judea and Samaria, to show what happens when the Israeli army and settlers, they move out. No peace comes hell.
I remember him as a great man and a great leader, but I think he made a mistake with the disengagement because it didn't bring us peace.
Very bad and very sad. He was honest man and good man. And Israel lost a good Prime Minister for Israel.
World leaders now reacting to the death of Ariel Sharon. President Obama remembering the former Israeli Prime Minister as a man who dedicated his life to his country. Sharon was 85. His death coming 8 years after a massive stroke left him in a coma from which he never recovered. Connor Power, live in Jerusalem with more. Connor?
Well, Sharon is being described today as a great defender of Israel. He was a former soldier turned politician and really considered the last of the great Israeli leaders here in Israel, a man who was willing to make tough decisions when the time was needed for tough decisions. Now, at the height of his power back in 2006, while Prime Minister, Sharon suffered a debilitating stroke and has been hanging on in a coma for the past 8 years. He was controversial. There's just no way of escaping that. He was both loved and hated here in Israel, hailed as both a war hero and as a war criminal. In 2000, Sharon helped spark a Palestinian uprising when he pushed past security and entered the Al-Aqsa Mosque, one of Islam's most sacred locations. During the violence of the Second Intifada, thousands of Palestinians and Israelis died. Sharon was also an early supporter of Israeli settlements in the Palestinian territories, but he later, as Prime Minister, did a complete 180 and led the total unilateral disengagement from Gaza back in August of 2005. Sharon concluded that Israel needed to disengage on Israel's terms. Scenes of Israeli troops carrying out Israeli settlers shocked the country and really the world. Now, tomorrow, Sharon's body will lay in state at the Knesset tomorrow, Arthel, and then on Monday there will be a funeral for him. We understand that Vice President Joe Biden will attend that and will represent America as part of that service and that delegation from the United States, Arthel.
Okay, Connor Powell, thank you so much.
NBC's Martin Fletcher, who covered him for decades, takes a look back.
Hidden from view, the body of Ariel Sharon was driven from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem today for a state ceremony in Parliament Monday. His son Gilad said Sharon chose his own time to go, while Palestinians in Gaza said, at last. The Hamas spokesman said Sharon's hands were drenched in Palestinian blood. Ariel Sharon symbolized Israel's iron fist. Born in Palestine to a farming family, he was a fighter all his life. 1948, wounded in Israel's War of Independence. 1967, after the Six-Day War, he suppressed violence by Palestinians in occupied Gaza. 1973, a war hero, turning back Egypt's surprise attack. General Sharon's military reputation, brutal and brilliant. His nickname, the Bulldozer.
We have to hold the sword in one hand, not because we wanted, but in order to defend ourselves.
But in 1983, he was banned from ever again being defense minister after Lebanese Christians massacred Palestinians in Lebanon and an Israeli inquiry found Sharon indirectly responsible. He made a comeback as a champion of Jewish settlers and became Israel's prime minister in 2001. The old warhorse later stunned the nation yet again with talk of a deal with the Palestinians.
For a genuine, durable, real peace, we are ready to make painful compromises.
To keep some of the West Bank, he believed Israel would have to give up most of the occupied territories. That included Gaza, where the Israeli army forced out 9,000 Jewish settlers. Parts of the West Bank could have been next, but in 2006, Sharon fell victim to a massive stroke. Monday afternoon, there will be a private family burial at Sharon's beloved farm in the Negev desert, where he'll be laid to rest next to his wife, Lily. Lester?
Martin, thank you.
What's remarkable is that this man, who is this hardliner, this military hero in Israel, and architect of the settlements policies, that when he became prime minister, and this is what I think is going to be part of his legacy, sitting in that chair as prime minister gave him a different perspective. And he realized that Israel's security could not be obtained only through military means.
They called him the bulldozer. Soldier first, politician second, Ariel Sharon loomed large over 50 years of turbulent Israeli history. A hardliner who eventually seemed to soften, but could not bring Israel peace. Ariel Sharon was born into a world of Jewish pioneering zeal. During Israel's original War of Independence, he was already in the army. Then in 1967, he led a dramatic nighttime attack into Egypt. His image as a brilliant tactician was cemented, but there was a dark side. His men were accused of shooting Egyptian prisoners. In the 1973 war, Sharon actually crossed the Suez Canal before being told to advance no further. He was angry. "We defeated the Egyptians," he said, "but didn't finish the war." Then, as a politician, he campaigned loudly for Jewish settlers colonizing the occupied territories.
When we come to any kind of political solution.
As a new government minister, his original aim was to prevent the creation of a future Palestinian state. Then, as Minister of Defense in 1982, Sharon led a full-scale invasion of Lebanon. Stated aim to secure Israel's northern border from terrorist attack. But the real priority, to smash Yasser Arafat's PLO. The Israeli siege of West Beirut caused great suffering. Christian militias close to Sharon moved into the refugee camps of Sabra and Shatila and slaughtered unprotected Palestinian civilians.
לא הייתה לנו ולו לרגע מחשבה שהם יעשו את מה שהם עשו.
An Israeli tribunal found Ariel Sharon indirectly responsible for the massacre, and he was sacked. But Sharon clawed his way back. By the end of the 90s, he was foreign minister under Benjamin Netanyahu. His ambition to take over the right wing in Israeli politics led him to a highly provocative visit to the Al-Aqsa Mosque on Jerusalem's Temple Mount. It triggered a Palestinian uprising, but it also helped sweep Sharon into power. Ariel Sharon promised Israelis peace with security, but brought neither. Palestinian suicide bombs triggered ever harsher Israeli punishment. Sharon once again pitted against his old foe Yasser Arafat.
We regard Chairman Arafat as an enemy.
Ariel Sharon spent most of his life fighting Israel's enemies. One of his final acts was to build a barrier to keep them out. But he also adapted politically, withdrawing from the Gaza Strip and a part of the West Bank, defying his original supporters, the Israeli settlers. His eventual vision became peace with the Palestinians and with Israel's neighbours, but strictly on Israel's terms. But then in January 2006, Prime Minister Ariel Sharon suffered a massive stroke. He went into a coma and never recovered. Ariel Sharon died with peace still apparently a distant prospect.